Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of October 10th through the 16th. A very interesting week where the Saturn-Uranus square that's been going on for about 2 years now is going to be as tight as it can really get. Without being exact again, and is really being triggered in the events that we're seeing around us in society. And it's going to be triggered by the Sun and Venus this week, and also our semi-square between Jupiter and Uranus also being triggered this week. So two of our long-term transits that are going on right now, both being activated by inner planets. But first, some basic business. The Astrological Winds channel is a free service. It is on YouTube every week. If you have a YouTube account, become a follower and turn on your notifications and you'll know when it's on. It's also available on podcasts, all kinds of different podcasts. Just look it up on your favorite podcast, the Astrological Winds channel. If you don't find it there, try another one. Not really have to watch video these days. It's mainly me talking to the camera. Sometimes I show a chart. So podcast, just being able to listen to it gives you greater flexibility in your ability to do that at times. So I also post the link on Instagram. So if you have an Instagram account, look up Astrological Winds channel. Once again, all one word on that. And then become a follower. And I also post some additional information most weeks on Instagram of just written comments that only take a few seconds to read on, certain days where things may be a little bit more going on than I can mention on the weekly, and just add on to it so you get some extra information there. I also have a Facebook account. It is private. If you friend me at Matthew, and that's with 2 T's, so it's Matthew, and then my last name is Lawton, Lauten. And I will let you in into my private there, and I do post the link there too. I don't really use the Facebook for much else. So those are different ways to get it. Now, also remember, if you are not well versed or knowledged in astrology, the point in the blog is not so much to get caught up on the astrological terms and language, which will only confuse you. You want to listen to what that means in between those terms, the interpretation, so that you can use the energy this week in ways that are best beneficial to you. Astrology is all about getting self-empowerment from knowing the energies that are moving both in our charts and in the in what's affecting the world, and that's what this blog is about. So if you want to get in touch with me, the best way to do that is through email right now, and that is matthue823@gmail.com. Best way to support me, since the blog is a free service, is to please pass it on to someone else, the link to it, as soon as we're done today. And I know not everyone would be interested in it, but if you think someone might be interested in it, please pass it on. I love seeing the blog grown organically. That's really the way I want to do things. Also, you can support me by getting a reading. I've been doing professional readings for over 20 years. So if you're in need of a reading, or you know someone who is, get in touch with me. Once again, it's matthue823@gmail.com. And there are some of you out there that occasionally or would like to give a donation to the blog, which I'm always welcome to that. And my Venmo handle is the symbol @, and once again, it's Matthew with 2 T's and then a hyphen in the middle, and then Lauten. So just getting those orders of business out of the way for those of us who don't make it to the end of the blog, which I understand, and I will repeat that information at the end in more detail. So like I said, this week really the Saturn Uranus square, which is all about structure and on a societal scale, breaking down reliable, stable structures across all forms, physical, abstract, those type of things breaking down. So we've had 2 years of this energy going on. Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. And they've had 3 exact hits. And right now they're very, very close to one another. And they are within 39 minutes of each other, which means they're in a partile square with one another. They're within 1 minute in the same degree, the 19th degree. So they're very, very acute, the energy going on in these squares right now. And then we also have another background one going on that I've mentioned a few times, and that is Jupiter is semi-square Uranus and also Saturn. So it's literally on the midpoint of those two, and that's all about like an edgy kind of energy that's seeking something new, some new freedom, some new growth, some new ways of dealing with the system. So both of these longer term transits are really being poked right now, really hard. And you can see it. You can see it in the world. You can see it in our individual lives. You can see it in society, how things have seemed to really reach a fever pitch point where a lot of the stable things that we rely on in society, institutions, ideas, are all being questioned, falling apart. There's so many different examples, the Russian-Ukraine situation, what's going on in Iran, what's going on in the United States, with the economy, oil prices, energy situations, food situations, climate change events. There's so many things that are poking at the structure of the way things have been for a long time and showing those weaknesses. And yet there's this great sense that this can lead to some great freeing changes. And then, of course, that infiltrates all the way down onto individual levels because we're all members of society. So I know, being an astrologer and doing readings for people regularly, that, people are very challenged in their lives individually right now. And a lot of it is directly related to the events that are going on collectively together. So this week starts with Mercury, if you remember, being retrograde and went direct last weekend, is going to go back to Libra, where it started its retrograde journey. And when Mercury is in Libra, it's a time when decision making slows down, where we really take a look at all the different aspects of a situation before we make a decision. So for those who are not patient, it can seem like people are, they can get very impatient with people who are being slower and more cautious about the decisions we're making. But there's a great gift that Mercury in Libra has, and that's the gift of diplomacy. The gift of being able to sit down and negotiate in a very positive and open manner and getting parties to agree to things. So that's a good part of this Mercury, which can be actually helpful in the situation, because Mercury actually is one of the planets this week that's going to trigger one of those two outer aspects that I was talking about, and that is Mercury is involved with Jupiter and Uranus, the semi-square between Jupiter and Uranus. So what happens is on Wednesday, Mercury has its third and final exact opposition to Jupiter. Now, if you'll remember, I talked about this a few times during the Mercury retrograde period, how this opposition was very imprinted on that period because it was going to hit 3 times. So this is the third hit, and it's about grander and bigger visions. It's about wanting to bring in more into our lives and wanting, and so a lot of that was probably chewed over within each of us individually during that Mercury retrograde period of the last few weeks. And now when the third hit comes, it's time to broadcast. It's time to get your word out on what you want to say, what you want to do, what you want to show the world. And it's a time too where you have to kind of like sit down and negotiate in order to do that. And the interesting thing is, when you think about Jupiter and Uranus in this semi-square, they have something very much in common, and that is the desire to have more freedom, to have more independence, which leads to more personal growth. So despite the edginess of the semi-square in this situation and the opposition of Mercury to Jupiter, and it's also sessi-quadrating Uranus the same day on Wednesday, there's this edginess that comes from this desire for freedom and independence, but it does bring personal growth. So the big, and with the two outer planets, that is Uranus in Taurus and the Jupiter in Aries in the first two signs of the zodiac, it is definitely interested in that on a very personal level, so it's like the independence and freedom to be able to move is a big part of this. But with Mercury in Libra and also Saturn involved in this, because remember, Jupiter is on the Saturn-Uranus midpoint, and so it's also semi-square Saturn, and it has been most of the summer. I've talked about it a few times during the summer. There is this energy of grounding too, and negotiation, because normally Jupiter and Uranus together is like a fire, it can quickly blow up into this big energy really fast, and can even cause some pretty upsetting energy, and bring change very rapidly, very quickly, which, we can see a lot of that going on. But the Saturn and the Mercury can bring it back a little bit. Normally, Mercury could be very affected by that energy and take off very quickly. And that's one of the dangers here still, too, is that if we're not aware of how much our minds can get stimulated by the ideas and the grand visions we have right now, we can very much forget to take care of a lot of the important details. And I think the Mercury in Libra will help us actually slow down and do that, and recognize that there's other people involved. The same with the opposition, that we have to negotiate. And even the sessi-quadrate, it's going to bring in a lot of ideas, but we got to figure out which ones are the good ones and which ones are not. So I think the Saturn in Aquarius will also help that by bringing in stability and saying, let's take some of these ideas and put them into the systems and structures that we have and try to give them some kind of upgrade. But I think, that can also make sure that everybody's needs are being spelled out and met, like in a more open negotiating way than more of a way of just Jupiter and Uranus acting alone, and can be more flippant and tactless about where other people's needs are at. But this is like, it's very cutting edge and big ideas that we're thinking, and it's, and the energy is moving very fast in relation to this. So at times the tension can come quite up from very quickly moving situations that we have to adapt to and make changes. But it can bring sudden changes in fortunes, which, can go either way. Sudden changes in destiny that can go either way. Different kinds of events that, like I said, we have to adapt to. Some of them rooted in losses or damages, that can occur from very fast changing events. And you look at Florida and what happened there as a good example of this. So So this energy is being triggered and normally can really take off and forget about a lot of the details or even show us, during the retrograde period where the details are let up. Like, once again, take Florida, for example. If you're not ready for a hurricane, what can kind of happen to the structures around you if you're not taking care of those kind of details. So, just one quick example. So this energy is very potent this week to get your larger vision out, but it's going to require some careful decision making, some negotiating, making sure everyone's needs are being met, and then can bring in a lot of new experience, a lot of new freedom and independence to us that can be very stimulating and also bring in personal growth in a time when things are changing rapidly. Now, going to the next part is that Saturn-Uranus square being triggered by both the sun and Venus this week. Venus is catching up to the sun at this point. It's speeding up. It's getting close to the sun. So whatever the sun does this week, Venus is a couple days behind it. So they're really already conjunct and they're kind of acting together. They're both in Libra, and Venus, of course, very strong in Libra. The sun not as strong in Libra, but Venus starts the week actually on Monday, today, with an opposition to Chiron, which is showing that this is a time where we can learn a lot of lessons through our partnerships, through our relationships, through our creative endeavors. And they may be lessons that come from losses, especially financially, or feeling like our creativity is drained or something like that. But it's setting us up to move forward and make some adjustments. So all week long, both the sun and Venus will be triggering that Saturn-Uranus square, but in particular, it's going to peak Tuesday through Thursday. Both of them, both the sun and Venus, since they're together, are going to quincunx Uranus, and they're both going to trine Saturn. So very interesting. We have one aspect that's one of tension and change and having to adapt to things, and we have another aspect that says, hey, there's a good flow and harmony to things so once we make these adaptations, we may be able to take things to a new level and build some new stability. But remember, in general, this Saturn-Uranus square is all about structures falling apart rapidly, things changing all around us, a lot of upsets, a lot of tension, a lot of sudden change and reaction to that, situations that, have been brought to literally a linear end, breaking down where they just cannot physically go on the way they are. And there's so many times, and that's being played out on a societal level. So, here we think about Iran. That's a good situation to think about, or the situation in Ukraine. But all these situations, people just, society breaking down and things, changes to institutions, to structures, which come down and are affecting individuals too, and are affecting relationships between individuals too, because Venus is involved too. So it's like forcing us to make a lot of adjustments to these things in our life and in relationships, and holding on will only bring us more pain, will only bring, more just self-inflicted misery because of not dealing with the reality of what's going on. So we have to and another thing on individual levels too is that with the sun involved, we can literally take that on as physical ailments, as illness, injuries, things like that. So it's really a time where we have to adjust and let go of a lot of things in order to bring in new energy. So there's this great restlessness that's going on inside us, and it's being projected out onto our relationships too. And, a lot of it may have to do with money too, with Venus involved. quickly changing financial situations that are not stable and that we're having to adjust to, and coming up with new creative ways in order to do that. So it's a very mixed up energy inside of us, and it gets projected out into our relationships too. Trying to find new balance is not easy. Trying to find where we are at with others, and who the people we need to adjust and separate from, and who we need to kind of let in. And that's what the quincunxes are going to have us do. They're going to have us take a look at that stuff, the Sun and Venus in our lives and in our relationships, and make adjustments based on the structures and things falling apart around us. And then that trine to Saturn can kick in, and we can really roll up our sleeves and start to build new structures and forms out of that. So once we can get past that energy, then we can find people to stabilize with. We can find the skills and abilities within ourselves to focus and concentrate on what we need to do. Saturn shows that we need to be more conservative in a lot of areas to get through harder times. But if we use our minds and the great focus and concentration that it can bring, we'll find that we have the ability to take on whatever comes to us, whatever duties and responsibilities come to us, and build new solid structure underneath in a changing time. And that goes right into our relationships. We're going to be seeking the ones that we are perceiving that are more stable, that are a little bit more reliable than what's going on in the world. And that's what we need. We need each other in a time when structure and society around us is breaking down. Individuals need to restabilize and create new form and structure together. So that's really what this week is going to be a lot about. Now, there is a couple other little things which is going to show the struggle that this energy can create. And on Tuesday, Mars is square Neptune, and then next weekend, the Sun is quincunx Neptune on Sunday. And both of these energies, Neptune is the great dissoluter. This shows that, there can be a lot of disheartening and discouraging energy that we need to work through, that can slow down our actions, basically, that, that have us feeling, not as confident in what's going on, and can make us feel like, we've been misled, we've been deceived, we've wasted energy and resource in certain things that have not worked out, and then our ideals have been discouraged, let down, therefore making us feel like they were futile attempts, they were maybe even foolish attempts, things like that. So it's going to require some adjustments again. A lot, there's a sensitivity basically going on. And once again, it's interesting. With Mars and Sun Neptune, it's saying to slow down a little bit. It's the same as like that Mercury in Libra is saying, and Saturn in Aquarius is saying. It's like to slow down and not get so caught up. But, the danger with the Mars Neptune and Sun Neptune is the escapism hatch. Finding different ways to escape, or playing the game of martyrhood or victimhood, or falling into our fears in some way or another. So, there's a lot of energy that needs to be adjusted to with this kind of thing inside, mainly because it can really bring a depressing energy that makes us just want to, not do anything, to just kind of escape some way and just avoid reality. So that's going to be a little bit, I think, just kind of the feeling we're going on as we watch a lot of these structures around us falling. But remember, there's this great promise of new freedom new self-expression, new ideas and grander visions being able to be implanted in a time of great change. And that's really what that Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn all together is promising. So, if we are feeling that discouragement from the Mars, Sun, Neptune, it's good to, go back to that Mercury, Jupiter, and Uranus and Saturn together and, tap into that grander vision again and get some inspiration there. And then, use the Sun, Venus with Uranus and Saturn to make the adjustments you have to make in your life, and then start building those new forms in your life and with others. So a very interesting week. We're really at that point where, that open wound of the Saturn Uranus is just bleeding profusely, and it's hard. It's a hard time, and I know that, there's a lot of change going on, and yet there's this great promise too that if we can ride out these adjustments and changes, that can bring us a lot more personal freedom and fulfillment ultimately. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I do this blog every week. It's a free service, and what you can do to pay me back is, as soon as we're done, pass the link on to somebody else. It's really not a lot to ask. I understand they may not like it and they may not follow it, but it's really a great organic way to grow this and find the right people who it does ring well with. And I really appreciate all of you who listen to it and support it. And if you can do me that little favor, that'd be great. If you want to give a donation, I won't say no to that either. Like I said, my Venmo handle is @, and then capital M for Matthew, with 2 T's, MATTHEW, then a hyphen in the middle, not at the bottom, and then a capital L, AUTEN. The other best way to support me is to get a reading from me if you're in need of a reading. And I really recommend everybody have their natal chart done and, have a good understanding of it, because that's self-empowerment, to know the energy in your life and to be able to work with it. I've been doing charts for over 20 years, have magical experiences with people. So give me an email if you're interested in that. And then, and the other chart I recommend to get done every year is your predictive reading. It's a weather report, just like I give every week for the world, but I give it to you individually for a year, because the planets are affecting your chart in a different way every year. So it lets you know, the bigger issues of the year for you, and gives you, once again, knowledge that you can use to hopefully be more self-empowered and make your life easier. I also do relationship charts, children's charts, fixed star readings if you're looking for a deeper soul purpose, election charts for if you're starting up a new project or need the best timing for an event like a wedding or a business startup, are good examples. They're very popular. Relocation astrocartography, another very popular thing if you're looking to move or seeing where your planetary lines are strongest in the world. That's another really good thing to do. Also do horary charts if you have a burning emotional question or decision that you just can't seem to get the answer to. We might be able to find the answer in a chart for you. All these services, including classes. I have beginning classes, $25 a piece, $20 if you're a student with an ID, or if you need a lecture or a class at an event, mini reading, some kind of astrology entertainment at an event, all those things. The best way to get me right now is through my email, MATTHUE823 @gmail.com. That's MATTHUE823 @gmail.com. Remember too, if you're following on YouTube or one of the podcasts, if you don't, like I said, don't have to really see the video. Look it up on your favorite podcast, Reveal, Apple iPodcasts, Spotify. It's distributed to about 20 different ones through Buzzsprout every week. Also the links on Instagram. If you have an Instagram account, become a follower of the Astrological Winds channel. I do post extra information at times on that also. Or Facebook. And you have to friend me. Matthew Lawton, Lauten. And then I do post the link there too. So please, pass the link on. And if you have any interest in any kind of astrological services, please get in touch with me. And otherwise, let's see, how things continue to unfold. Like I said, a couple weeks ago with that U.S. Equinox chart, we saw results of that right away, where we saw how the Uranus on the ascendant, we got the hurricane hitting Florida, and now, the Pluto on the midheaven. It seems like the president really having to consolidate a lot of power and energy. So we're going through a very interesting quarter this week with this very tight Saturn Uranus all this month, and this quarter really being triggered by these inner planets. It's going to be a lot of change going on, but there's also a lot of promise behind it. All right, I will see you all next week. This is Matt Lawton, and this is the Astrological Winds channel signing off.